Hi students, this is Mrs. Marinelli from Electronic Calculating Business 268, and this video is working on chapter 14, percents. So working on percents. Percent means hundredth or part out of 100. So 25% means 25 parts out of 100 parts. So we can write it as 25 out of 100, or we can write it as 25%, or we can convert it to a decimal, which would be 0.25. So there are different ways to express these numbers, and it depends on what is the data that we're working with as to do I want to use percents, fractions, or decimals. So if I have a percent and I want to convert that percent to a decimal, one way is to divide the number by 100. So I need my Judy's 10 keys set to 4. So I would just take the fraction 25, divide by 100, and it's 0.25. An easier method, a shortcut method, when you divide by 100, you move the decimal 2 places to the left. Every number has a decimal. So after a whole number is a decimal, move it 2 places to the left, add your decimal, and get rid of the percent sign. So that's the same as dividing by 100 in your head. A mixed number is a whole number with a fraction. So when you have a mixed number, first make the fraction into a decimal percent. So we know that 1/2 is the same as 0.5. It's still a percent because I haven't moved the decimal. Now move your decimal 2 places to the left. If there's not a number, add a 0 so you can have 2 places to the left. So 0.015 as the decimal is the same as 1.5% or 1.5%. They all mean the same thing. On page 91, let's do a couple more of these. Let's say I have 1 1/4%. Before you convert it to a decimal, make the fraction into a decimal percent. We know that 1/4 is 1.25. I haven't moved the decimal. I just brought it down and got rid of the fraction, percent. Now move it 2 places to the left. Add your 0. So 0.0125 is the decimal. Okay, looking on page 91, now we're going to change decimals to percents. We're going to change a decimal to a percent. Would you want to say I ate 0.5% of a cookie? Or would you want to say I ate 0.25 of a cookie? we just say I ate half a cookie, right? Or a fourth of a cookie. So sometimes we use fractions, sometimes we use decimals, sometimes we use percents. So on page 91, changing a decimal to a percent, decimals are changed to percents to make them easier to talk about. Simply multiply the decimal by 100, or move the decimal place 2 places to the right and add the percent sign. So 0.15 as a decimal is what as a percent. We can multiply by 100, or when you multiply 100, you're moving the decimal 2 places to the right. So it's the same as 15.00%. If you have a fraction that never ends, remember a third is 33333 and it never ends. No, we're doing decimals. What are we doing here? It's 1.333 and we are carrying them out to 4. So bring your decimal down, convert the fraction to a decimal. It never ends, but we're just going to carry it out to 4. So it's still a decimal. Now either multiply by 100 or move your decimal to the right 2 places. So it's the same as 133.33%. So on page 91, numbers 1 through 12, you're changing decimals into percents, and on 13 through 24, you're changing percents to decimals. So remember, when you change a percent to a decimal, you're going to move the decimal 2 places to the left and get rid of the percent sign. And then, let's see, on numbers 25 through 36, it's mixing it up for you, so you have to just think a little bit more. Okay, flip to page 92. Okay, so on 92, we're doing fractions to percents. Okay, I'm going to use a triangle method. For those of you who prefer algebra, you can certainly use the algebraic method. This is going to be part. Your book calls it percentage. I like to call it part because the rate goes here and that's where your percent goes, or your decimal, and I don't want you to confuse percent with percentage. And this is always your base. So the relationship between two numbers can be used as a fraction, and we don't really need all three for this chapter, but I'm getting you ready for the next chapter. So we can write them as fractions, decimals, or percents. So on these, you're going to write the fraction and then change it to a decimal or a percent. So let's look at 37. A real estate agent earned $7,800 commission on a sale of a $120,000 house. What fraction, okay, so we know we're going to have a top number and a bottom number, of the selling price, what follows of is going to go in the base 99.9% of the time, was the agent's commission? What fraction? So he earned $7,800, that's our part, on the sale of a 100, that's our base. $120,000 house. So our fraction is 7,800 over 120,000. So for every number on top, every zero on top, I can get rid of a zero on the bottom. For every zero on top, I can get rid of one on the bottom. That's just dividing. So now we have 78 over 1,200, and we can reduce this to lower terms. What's 70? I know because this is an even number and this is an even number, I know at least 2 will go into it. So I can take 78 divided by 2 and get 39. 1,200 divided by 2 is 600. Okay, now I can take another number. I know 3 goes into both of those, so I'm going to divide both by 3. 39 divided by 3 is 13, and 600 divided by 3 is 200. So the fraction reduced to lowest terms is 13 over 200. So in your algebra classes, you would have learned to reduce this by lower terms probably in one step. We're not in a math class, and I'm not going to teach how to get lowest terms, but you could also do it that way. So then it said what fraction, and that's where they left it, but let's carry this further. What else could I have done? I could take my 78 over 1,200 and convert that to a decimal. Okay, and then I can convert that decimal into a percent by moving the decimal 2 places to the right and add the percent sign. So these numbers, these fractions all mean the same amount. So what was his percentage rate? 6.5% is the commission that he received. So I suggest those of you who are not remembering algebra, if you haven't had algebra in a long time, that you use the triangle method, and then you won't get your numbers backwards. On page 93, it's a really good review of going from fractions to decimals, decimals to fractions, and percents. So let's look at which one do I want to do? Let's just do the last one, 3/12. Okay, reduce that to lowest terms. 3 divided by 3 is 1. 12 divided by 3 is 4. Okay, I know that a fourth is 0.25. We don't need to use the calculator for that one. And then 25% by moving the decimal 2 places to the right. Okay, so this is getting us prepared for the next few chapters, and in the next few chapters we will use the triangle method. So if you can get used to it, even though it's not asking us for this right now, this will help prepare for the next chapter. So I hope that helps you understanding percents and decimals and fractions. Have a good day, everybody.